I'm Ronni Santmyer, and today in the studio we're going to do a little mixing tip on how to add room mics on your drums when you don't have room mics on your drums. I'm doing a session right now with Anthony Santolo, and we're tracking a bunch of different things, and this particular song I didn't do the drums on. I did some with Mark St. Pierre probably a couple months ago, and got to this song the other day, and he gave me the tracks, and we just imported them. I lined them up, and I started messing with them. I saw in this session, the drums are Sean Rickman, and he recorded everything at his house himself in a basement. And this particular song has a kick, a snare, top and bottom, hi-hat, 2 toms, and 2 overheads. I think there was another song he had like 5 toms. This is a different kit. It's smaller. Anthony was telling me that the way his basement sounds, it's not going to be real roomy anyway. And I don't know if he ever does use room mics or not, but this is kind of what I got. I'll let you hear just the raw, no plugins on it. Okay, and I decided, just to throw the auto line on like I did in another video to fix the timing issues and any phasing problems. And I just threw a couple waves SSL EQs on them and some fab filters to notch out some things that were bugging me. And none of this is in stone. This is just rough, throw together balances. I decided to throw a kick sample and a snare sample on it. All right, and I threw a UAD 4ADL Lexicon reverb on too. I'm going to leave that off for now, but I did it for his quick bounce. But I was messing with these tracks, figuring down the road at some point I'm going to have to mix these, and I kind of want to add some room to some of these drums on some of these songs that I didn't record, because, for instance, this one, the guitar player Nick Nolan has a lot of effects all over his stuff on guitar, and it sounds really cool, but the drums seem naked and kind of flat against all those effects. And I normally in a situation like that would bring up the room to give it kind of, girthy bounce in the room instead of the direct mic overhead sound. It's so close. I want some distance. What I do in a scenario like this, I'll create a track. Let's call it Faux Room. And I'm going to send tracks over to it. And in Reaper, you can just kind of drag and send. I'm going to set this to pre-fader. And we're going to just listen to only that. Okay. Now, you can hear, let me even turn this off. That's flat, the way he recorded it. I mean, it's balanced nicely, but I wanted to add a little sparkle to it, and I just kind of threw on a UAD Vertigo compressor and fab filter to actually try to add a little bit of that bottom end. And I'm doing some little bit of compressing on these to just try to tame some of that. But you notice if you listen, there's not a lot of bottom. When I'm tracking overheads, I try to get a full picture of the kit. I want to hear, floor toms. I want to hear kick drum. So I kind of think of it as like if I only had those 2 mics and I had to mix around it, hopefully the balance is good enough that that could be it. Or maybe just 1 kick drum mic could be added, and that would be your sound. This is a little too thin for me. So in order to do this fake room thing, I'm going to send a little kick drum over to it as well. And just a little bit. If you throw too much in there the fact that we're going to make this a reverb thing, it's going to get too either too cloudy in the bottom, or the low end of what we're going to do to kind of delay the room a little bit or sustain it. You can make the kicks flam then, and I don't want to do that, so I'm trying not to get too much kick in there. That's without it. So it's just a little bit. Sometimes I'll add snare in that, and I think I tried to do that earlier, and I didn't really like it. I can actually live with it because it's getting a lot of snare in that overhead mic anyway. So at this point, what I'll do sometimes, and in most cases I do it, and I sound like I need it now, is I'll put a transient designer on it, and I'm using this JS plugin, Santmyer. It's kind of like a transient designer from SPL, with a little bit extra features, I guess. It's so here's your attack, and this is your sustain. This is sensitivity of how much it's pushing into everything, and then your overall output gain. So if I go forward like a normal transient designer, it's gonna add punch. But we want to sustain and slow it down so it feels like a room. I mean, it's not going to slow it too much, but you want to kind of feel like it just gives a little bit. And this same way, if I want to sustain tighter this way, it's going to sound like a gate. But we want to drag that note out. Without it. Okay, and then the way the cymbals are sounding and everything, I'm going to need a fab filter before I even go into a verb. I'm going to try to find the top that's annoying and kind of duck that down a little bit like a de-esser. Somewhere in there. The way he's hitting those cymbals, it sounds like the overheads are kind of close. He might have had small ceilings in there. I don't really know the room. There's a little cloudy boxiness right here on that snare drum. I just don't want to build that up anymore. Let me just see what it's like if I just add a little bit of that snare into that bus. Oops. All right, that sounds better. I'm always checking phase. Okay, now that I've kind of slowed the room down with that transient designer, and I added a little bit of de-essing style compression up top and kind of ducked this snare hit in the bottom. We're going to add a verb or a room. And I'm going to start with the Ocean Way from UAD. This is AKGC12's an Omni in this studio. I want to try this studio instead. And with this plugin, the reverb, if you put that on, if you put it on a bus and just assign everything to those tracks like a normal reverb, it acts like a reverb. The remic button allows you to put it as an insert directly on a channel, kind of like a reamp, like you would a guitar. Let me see what this. Okay, let me try that. I'm going to slide that in the track. Yeah, you can hear it's adding a little space. Let's go back to the other studio a second. And the other thing, sometimes when I really want to get crazy, I'll use the Chandler Zener compressor from UAD. And I can start with this Joe Ciccarelli room comp. All right, that's crazy, but let's slide that in. Talking about that low end earlier, a lot of times I'll get yet another fab filter. I never want the low end pumping too hard because then it starts to sound, like I said, flammy against the other direct kick that we want to be punchier over here. So that's adding a little wash. And I mean, again, none of this is in stone. I'm just messing around quickly for the video. Let me show you another thing to do. I like using IRs a lot. And you can go to Impulse Record website and get this free IR loader. And it comes with some samples in here of like some classic reverbs and some delays. On their website, they have a whole library of things you can get from Elisa's MIDI verbs to Yamaha SPX 90s, all the way up to higher end Eventides and Lexicon stuff. But I'm not going to use that. I'm going to actually go into File, because you can load your own IR. So there's tons of IRs, impulse response, reverbs all over the internet. I'm going to use the Procasti M7. It's a really smooth sounding reverb. And go something like the Studio Plate Far I like to use a lot. So I'm basically just going to put this in place of where the Ocean Way was. Let's listen to it. Now, in this one, you can go up here and turn this EQ on, and you can notch things out here. But I still tend to like the Fab filter. So let's listen to that. I haven't done anything else. It still has the transient designer in the front, and it's got this little bit of activity going on to help tame what's going into the reverb. Procasti's got a really smooth, natural sound to it. Now this is the Chandler compressor on it. There's a ton of different things to use. Let's just see what this will do. Let me put this Fab filter behind it again. I mean, I wouldn't go too crazy with a compressor, then it starts to sound like it's pumping, and it gets a little weird. But I mean, you can do whatever sounds good on your stuff. So in Reaper, I could just freeze this, or I can even render it as a stereo track, and then I have all the plugins printed. The good thing about the freezing is if I later decided I didn't want to keep it that way, I can just unfreeze it and tweak it and freeze it back if I wanted to, not run this many plugins at once. I'll throw another kind of weird little room on it real quick. Let me see. Let's stay with rooms, but let's go with like, here's drum chamber. I mean, we're using it on drums. Let's just see what it does. Yeah, see, to me, that's a little too long. Some of these other ones, here it is. Let's just do large and bright. I like the ambient because it's still just natural sounding. It doesn't sound washy like a real reverb would. So that's just the Fab filter, and yeah, I'm doing a little tiny bit of compression. I took these other compressors off. There's the drum kit. Put a little of that verb back on it. It's just making that snare pop more. And here's the rooms we created. That's just a teaser. I'm not allowed to play that. It's not the real track. That's how I get fake rooms sometimes. I hope you found it useful, and thanks for watching. Please subscribe, hit the bell, like it, all that stuff. Leave some comments also, and suggest topics you may want to see covered. Coming up with fresh content is kind of hard. Everybody's covered everything on YouTube already. I've been engineering a long time, and I'm just kind of going over things that I do, and hopefully it's useful to some people. But please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Bye.